looks like in an increasingly perimeterless or a borderless situation. So we've got cloud computing, where increasing amounts of data and applications are moving to enterprises or service providers where there is lesser and lesser control, right? Whether it's storage or processing or provisioning or networking and so on. So cloud computing has become a pretty serious business, as it said. And then, of course, Naeem, you spoke about this in the last session at length, but there is also a bring your own device culture almost that's coming around. And it's something which has come about without the enterprises really acknowledging its presence. So it started happening, we all started configuring personal enterprise emails on personal devices without the enterprise acknowledging it to start with. And it's only when security and compliance issues start coming up is when enterprises have started coming around and saying, oh, you know, we need something to fix this. Right. So the talk here is about how does security look like in an increasingly perimeterless or boundaryless world, where data, applications, people, devices are all uncontrolled. That's the discussion. And please feel free to stop if there are any questions, comments. So before we talk about security, let's look at what are the methods by which we can define perimeters or boundaries around organizations. Now these are what you see on the slide are some of the most common methods of defining boundaries or perimeters which have been used for many years now. So boundaries are defined based on the devices which are allowed or the networks that are right, the locations, sometimes physical, or the applications or the people who are the right people. And somehow enterprises have found a method to distinguish between what is the right device, network, location, application or person with what is not right. And what defines the boundary is one of the things or all of the things have to be right. But if you overlay this with what's happening in the real world today, is that almost none of these parameters can be used to define the boundary, because devices are increasingly uncontrolled. So they are personal devices. Sometimes even if they are officially provisioned devices, they are not really under the control of the enterprise. The networks are increasingly uncontrolled, where there are public networks, where the application itself is hosted on a cloud platform and so on. So public networks which are being used to access enterprise applications and content. Locations, of course, location is access which is based on location has already become history many years ago. And of course people. So people was almost the last frontier based on which perimeters were being defined, where at least you know who are the people who are supposed to access this information and who are the people who are not supposed to access. But even this is becoming increasingly thin as a perimeter, because there are a lot of movement of people, you know, within and outside of the enterprise. There are all kinds of temporary workers like consultants and vendors and service providers and auditors and lawyers and so on, who temporarily require access to specialized pieces of information. So the idea here is that there are pretty much any parameter used to define boundaries today either is already invalid or is starting to become invalid very quickly. And there are many examples of cases where information breaches or security breaches have happened from outside of the enterprise. So the enterprise sends data to a customer as a bid information, which is what happened with some of the tanker bidders who sent a bid to the US Department of Defense, and the Department of Defense was the cause of the information breach. Or you send information or data to an auditor, and the auditor manages to lose the data through some method, or it could be a service provider. So information breaches are increasingly happening from outside in a public device or a public network or a public application, or at least an uncontrolled environment. So the most obvious method of protecting this information is to do to this information what we do to our countries and our homes and so on, right? So we build a wall around it and then we put a gate. Then we give the right people the keys to the gate and we make sure that the burglars are kept out. Right? So the digital equivalent of this is start putting boundaries around the information itself. Right? So start blocking the USB drive, start to control the devices, control email access, control internet access, make sure that everything goes through a secured single point or single pipe and so on. Now all of this is very good and it increases security, but this security is coming at a cost, and that cost is collaboration. At some point of time, blocking a USB drive will hamper collaboration, because there's a reason why all of us carry USB drives in our pocket. They're very convenient methods of transferring large amounts of data very quickly. And similarly for emails and internet and USB drives and CDs and all the new methods of collaboration that may come about later. Dropbox, for example. Right. So there is security in all these methods, but this security is coming at the cost, and the cost is collaboration. Because you are controlling the flow of information in some way, right? Collaboration is likely to suffer. The second method, and this is what a class of technologies called rights management systems do, is security, but not at the cost of collaboration. Okay. So let's take the problem one by one. Let's solve the collaboration problem first and say we are going to allow all the internet and all the emails and all the devices and all the ports and the storage mechanisms like USBs and CDs and so on, and Dropbox and Facebook and whatever new methods of collaboration that may come up in the future. Right? So one goal, which is the goal of collaboration, gets achieved. The second goal, which is the goal of security, can be implemented by making information access go through a check. So at the time anyone is trying to consume this information, you run through these 4 checks, which are: is it the right person who's trying to access this information? Is it the right action he's trying to perform? Is it the right time and the right location? So if it's the right person trying to do the right action at the right time and the right location, then and only then you allow the information to be accessed and not otherwise. Now by combining, by allowing all methods of collaboration, present or future, with control at the time information is being accessed and while it is being accessed, it is possible to achieve the mutually conflicting goals of security and collaboration together. So what I'm going to do is just very quickly run through what an information rights management technology in action looks like. So just before we get into what it looks like, information rights management systems allow definition, implementation and audit of usage policies of information. So usage policy is, number one, who can use this information? Number two, what can each of these people do with this information? When and from where? Now together, the answers to these 4 questions define a policy, and there's a method to define the policy, implement the policy on information and audit. Right, so the first part is policy definition. So let's say there's a company which is launching a new product. In the new product launch, okay, I'll read this out because this may not be visible from the back of the audio, from the back. So the policy says that this is a draft product plan. Now this is a class of information. This policy is not defined for a device or a network or an application or a person or any of the other parameters. It is defined for the information itself. Right. So in the draft product plan, you have who are the people. The first question that we need to answer is, who are the people who can access this kind of information? So we have the head of research and Neil and head of finance and legal and so on. Now this is the answer to the first question, which is who are the people who can access this kind of information? The second question is, what can each of these people do? So can they just view it? Can they make changes to it? Can they edit it? Can they print it out? Can they copy data out of this kind of information? Can they take screenshots and so on? Can they send it to other people? So these are definitions of controls which are based on actions which can be performed by each of these people. The third is when or how long. So controls can be built based on start dates and end dates, or even time spans within which this information is available to each of these people or groups. Right? And the last is from where. So these could be locked down based on devices or networks from where this information is accessible. Right? So the answer to these four questions, which are who, what, when and where, together forms a policy. And now this policy is almost like a sticker that can be applied on documents and folders and SharePoint libraries and emails and so on, different kinds of information. So once this policy is defined, now if there is a document, the policy can be applied to the document itself or a set of documents. The policy can be applied to storage locations of folders. So as soon as information comes into that storage location, it automatically gets protected with that information. It can be applied on document and content collaboration technologies like SharePoint and FileNet and so on. It can also be applied to emails and newer methods of collaboration. So this could be applied to social media platforms if need be. So the policy is defined in abstract, and then having been defined in abstract, it can then be applied to information in various forms: documents, folders, storage locations, emails, libraries of different kinds and so on. Now whichever way this policy has been applied, notice that this policy is not applied to an application. It is not applied to a device, it is not applied to a person, it is applied to the information itself, which is the asset that we are all trying to protect here. Now whichever way the policy is applied, once the policy is applied, the policy travels with that information wherever it goes. So now if the recipient or one of the recipient tries or opens the document, because he's the authorized user, and now tries to print the document in violation of the policy, because the policy is contained within the information itself, the policy will make sure that that email or that document or the AutoCAD drawing or design cannot be printed. Or if there are any attempts to copy and paste content outside of that document, then those will be controlled and prevented. To the extent that even screenshots, whether they are taken using the regular print screen on the keyboard or using all kinds of new age screen grabbing or screen recording systems, all kinds of methods of taking screenshots are controlled. And the same thing extends to when this same information is accessed on mobile devices, iPhones and iPads and so on. So all of these controls, like cannot be printed, cannot be edited, cannot be forwarded and so on. So all of these controls extend when this information goes onto personally owned devices or any kind of mobile device. The last, not the least, is the capability to go back and do audits around this policy. So audits is not only can rights management system allow one to control who, what, when and where, they can also allow one to monitor who is doing what with this information, when and from where. So in this, again the screen is small, but Neil tried to view this information at this time. He edited this information. He also attempted to print the information, print this document which was not allowed. Right. So as this information is going on personally owned devices, laptops, Dropbox, wherever it is going, as it is going, all of the attempts to access or gain or do anything around that information is getting centrally captured and reported back. And now this can be used for some very rich auditing and tracking of the information itself. So the challenge with most information audits are that they are not really information audits, they are information security audits today. And here is a mechanism to make those audits information audits and not systems audits. Yes.
Is there a way to permit permissions to, you know, if your company policy is to go ahead and authorize, you know, data storage to Dropbox or something? Is there that policy that you can open that up?
Yes. So this control is independent of the method of collaboration. So Dropbox is one method of collaboration or storage. Right? So the policy will extend even to information that is being stored in Dropbox. If you visit our website, you will actually see a video of how information getting stored in Dropbox and then getting access on an iPad can still be protected and controlled in compliance with enterprise security policies. So the quick answer to your question is yes, it extends to Dropbox also.
Does it also work in connection with the other applications? Like if I have a SAP application and this has to work along with that, is there a handshake of some kind?
So any kind of transactional system, this rights management technologies come in useful whenever information is extracted from a transactional system. So information is within a transactional system is there in typically a database of some sort. Right? Now, while it is in the database, there are existing technologies to make sure that the database itself is not breached and so on.
Right.
The challenge comes when this information is extracted from the database and either presented on a screen or sent out as a report or downloaded as a PDF or Excel sheet and so on. So rights management technologies can come in at that stage. Whenever information is downloaded, as soon as it is downloaded, automatically apply SAP's security and governance policy on this information when it is being downloaded. So that's possible. Transactions is it's not really restricted to SAP, but transaction systems. So there are a lot of banks who restrict download of reports from online banking systems, or channel management systems, or ERP systems, of course, and so on. Yes.
I know I missed the first 5 minutes of your thing, so maybe it's a stupid question. I'm really confused that this is, so you're distinguishing, you're not using the word DRM, you're calling it IRM, purposely I take it.
Right.
And so if I do a screen share with Skype,
right.
So there's every device, are you installing some new, so how are you going to stop from me doing a screen share with Skype or?
Oh, we don't, no, we don't prevent, so our technology does not prevent screen sharing over Skype at all. That would be restricting collaboration, which is, so the motto here is security, but without the cost of collaboration.
Well, but the flip side of that is, I don't know if you read just came out last couple of days ago, in fact it was even raised by Joe Biden with the new premier of China. There's a company in the US, I don't remember the name, they build wind turbines. Actually, they build a controller logic that maintains that speed. Okay. And one of their employees basically shared the code with a Chinese customer, allowing them to reverse engineer it. And now, you know, there's a big case going on about property theft.
Sure.
So, who knows it is. But basically, this company lost all of its intellectual property.
Sure.
Because somebody did this
screen share. So this is a classic case of how the policies have to be built into the information itself.
So supposing your system was there,
yeah.
What would it have done to stop it? He's an employee of the company,
yes.
And he was getting paid on the side.
Yes.
I mean, implied or whatever term you want to use.
So what would have happened is when that piece of information was being accessed, the screen sharing systems, all screen sharing systems would have seen this. So let's say I am that employee, for example. I click on this document. I see the actual document.
Yeah.
Because obviously my job requires me to.
Yeah, you're the coder.
Right. So right. Now, as soon as I start a screen sharing session or screen recorder of any kind, this is what everybody else sees.
So that's what I'm trying to do, and maybe it's your. I'm missing the. I'm sitting on my laptop and I'm viewing the thing. Are you saying that you're doing something that will stop the screen sharing capability of the Skype?
No, we are not stopping the screen share. He can screen share. All he has to do
Oh,
is
he's
just
doing
close
the
down the
warning.
document. He closes down the document, regular screen sharing starts.
Yeah.
He opens the document, everybody else sees this.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
you and I heard something the same way too, because I thought, I heard you say you were not preventing collaboration, but my impression was from what I was seeing is that you were trying to constrict the sharing of information through your product. And so I think his question is trying to figure out how are you doing that, constricting that. And I understood things the way he did too.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess now we need a sort of re-education.
Okay. So let's say screen sharing and Dropbox are methods of collaboration, right? So you can use these methods to work with your coworkers, share information with your partners, and so on. So, right? These are all mechanisms to collaborate in some way. Our message here is that we are not stopping these methods, because there is a reason why screen sharing technologies are there. There is a reason why Dropbox is there. There is a reason why all of these individual technologies, that collaboration systems, there is a reason why they are there. Right? They are useful in some context, in some situation, and so on. All we are saying is that while you use all of these systems, the information is now security aware. Right? So this piece of code or the Word document or the AutoCAD design or what you have is now security aware. And what is the awareness of its own security? The security aware is this thing right here. So what happens here is that the document itself knows that screen grabbing is allowed or not.
I think you're making an unnecessarily complex answer. Your simple answer is yes, even in screen share, confidential documents are prevented from leaking.
That's correct.
That's end of story.
Thank you.
That's fine. It's not
Maybe we can take it
not the end
offline.
of story.
Why not?
Anyway, that's okay. Continue.
Okay. We can take it offline. Right? So I'm pretty much through with the last part here is that not only can information be audited, that audit reports can, dependent on local privacy laws, can get into real details like which device, what IP address, what network did that request come from, and so on. And in quite a few cases, these forensic reports are actually being used as circumstantial evidence in court, right, to prove that there was a breach of information by either ex-employees or business partners and so on. So consider rights management systems as all the security policies that you typically have around antivirus systems and firewalls and so on, but all of these security policies traveling along with the information itself. It's almost like a firewall around information. Right? With all the firewall rules and all the antivirus rules and all the intrusion detection rules and policies and so on, but the difference here is that the firewall is mobile. It travels wherever the information goes.
Does it add any weight into the documents that we are speaking of? Like, if it is adding, how much it will be?
Marginal. It's about, in case of Seclore File Secure, which is the rights management system, it's about 60 KB. So it's marginal. Yes?
So nowadays, we see a lot of graphics, photos, right? So you consider photos as information?
Yes.
Because now,
Yes. So they could be protected also. Any other questions, suggestions? Alright, so we are done very well on time, I think. Yeah. Just under half an hour. Thanks a lot for your time, and we can take up your question